feels like every time you turn around, there's another AI development that's shaking things up.
It's really quite remarkable.
Right. And this week is no exception.
Absolutely not.
We're going to do a deep dive into, what I think is a pretty big announcement that came out of China.
Yeah.
Things over there have been heating up.
Oh, yeah.
In the AI world.
A lot of competition, a lot of new players.
Particularly after DeepSeek kind of like threw a bomb into the mix.
Right. They came in with those really cost-effective models, and everybody's kind of like scrambling to...
Everyone's freaking out, right?
Yeah, got to figure out what to do.
Yeah, so one of the players there is Zhipu AI.
You've probably heard of them.
Yeah, you might have. They spun off of Tsinghua University.
Back in 2019.
Yeah, back in 2019, they've been around for a little while. They've been working on their GLM series of models, and they've been kind of making some waves.
Yeah.
But they recently came out and said that their GLM-4 model can outperform GPT-4 on certain benchmarks, which is...
That's a big claim.
Yeah, it is.
That gets your attention.
Right.
It definitely gets your attention.
So what they just did was they launched a brand new AI agent.
Called AutoGLM Rumination.
Right.
Pretty interesting name.
It is kind of a long name.
It is a bit long.
But here's the thing. It's free.
Yeah, that's the big headline here.
And they're calling it an all-purpose digital helper that can do...
Pretty much everything.
All sorts of things. They say it could do like beep research.
Travel planning.
Travel planning, web searches.
Report writing.
Write reports.
All sorts of things.
All for free. Now, compare that to a company like Menus that charges, like $200 a month for their general AI agent?
Up to $199 a month.
Yeah, that's a pretty big
difference.
Yeah, that's a big difference. So what we're going to do is kind of a deep dive here, and we've got some articles that we're going to be pulling from to give you all the information.
Yeah, we've been looking at AI Revolution on YouTube.
Yeah, that's a great channel.
And then Pace Magazine has some interesting stuff.
The Economic Times.
The Economic Times. Yeah, they always have a good global perspective.
Yeah, and then Neotech Lens on YouTube as well.
Another good YouTube channel.
So the idea here is to really kind of get you up to speed on what AutoGLM is.
Who's behind it, what they're all about, and what this all means.
Yeah, what it means for the AI landscape.
Yeah.
Is this a game changer?
Right. Is this the next big thing? We'll see.
Yeah, so let's jump into it.
Okay, let's do it.
So first of all, what is AutoGLM?
Yeah, so AutoGLM, it's this AI agent, and it's built on these models that Zhipu AI has developed themselves.
Okay.
It uses one called GLM Z1 Air, which is their reasoning model, and then another one called GLM 4 Air 0414.
Catchy names.
They are kind of a mouthful, aren't they? Yeah, that one's the foundation model.
Yeah, so what does that mean? Like practically speaking for somebody who might be using this.
So what can it actually do? Yeah, that's the important question. Well, they claim it can do a lot, and from what we've seen in these reports, they might be right.
Okay. So they say it can do really deep research on all kinds of topics.
Like what kinds of things are we talking about?
Well, anything you can think of, history, science, literature, current events, whatever you need.
Okay.
And it can do web searches to find information for you.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So if you need help finding stuff online, it can do that.
So it's like a better Google?
Well, that's what they're going for, but we'll have to see how it actually performs.
Right.
It can help you plan trips.
I like that. Yeah.
Little AI travel agent.
Exactly. Yeah, it'll suggest itineraries, figure out flights and hotels, all that stuff.
Okay, now that's something I could actually use.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And then it can also write reports for you.
So if I have to summarize a bunch of research?
Yeah, exactly. It can pull together all the information and generate a report.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And then on top of all that, it has these more general capabilities like reasoning and long form writing. So
it can actually write articles or stories or something like that?
That's what they're saying.
Wow.
And then it can even automate some tasks for you.
Like what kinds of tasks?
Like scheduling appointments, sending emails, things like that.
Okay, so it's like a personal assistant as well.
Exactly, yeah. It's supposed to be this all-in-one tool.
Yeah, that's pretty ambitious.
It is, and all for free, which is kind of crazy.
That is crazy. So how does it stack up against the competition? How good is it actually?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
They're making some pretty big claims, especially about the GLM Z1 Air model.
Yeah, that was the reasoning one.
Right. They say it's not only as good as DeepSeek's Star Model R1.
Which is considered pretty top-notch.
Yeah, one of the best out there, but
Yeah.
they're saying it's actually 8 times faster.
Wow.
And that it only needs 1/30th of the computing power.
1/30th. So you're telling me that this thing can run on a toaster?
Well, not quite a toaster,
You know what I mean?
but you get the idea.
Yeah, a much smaller footprint.
Yeah, much more efficient.
Wow.
And that's huge, especially for a company like Zhipu, because they can offer it for free.
And not go bankrupt.
Right, exactly. If they can run it that much cheaper than everyone else, it gives them a big advantage.
That's wild. So this isn't some limited trial or anything. It's the full thing.
Yeah, it's the real deal.
And it's totally free.
That's what they're saying.
And they're saying you can just get it from their website or their app.
Yep, just download it and you're good to go.
I mean, that's unheard of.
It isn't. It's a really bold move.
So why are they doing this?
Why are they giving it away for free? Well, I think it's all about competition.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So the AI market in China, it's like a crazy race right now.
Crazy how?
Everybody's trying to get ahead. There's so much investment pouring in. And then DeepSeek comes along with these low-cost models.
And it kind of threw everybody for a loop.
It did. It totally changed the game.
Yeah.
And so now everyone's trying to figure out how to compete.
So how does that tie into AutoGLM being free?
Well, I think Zhipu sees this as a way to really disrupt the market.
To kind of like shake things up.
Yeah, to undercut the competition, to grab a huge chunk of the market share.
So they're playing the long game here.
I think so. They're willing to take a hit in the short term to potentially dominate in the long run.
So they're not worried about making money right now?
Not from AutoGLM, no. They're probably betting on making money in other ways, like enterprise solutions or maybe even an IPO down the line.
Interesting. So you mentioned DeepSeek kind of forced everyone to change their strategies. How have other companies reacted to that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see how different companies have adapted. Some of them, like AI and Bishwan, they've decided to focus on very specific industries.
Like niche markets.
Yeah, like healthcare or finance.
So they're not trying to be everything to everyone.
Right, they're becoming more specialized.
And others?
Others, like Moonshot, they've basically become service providers.
So they're building on top of other companies' models.
Yeah, exactly. They're using like DeepSeek's open source stuff and creating custom solutions for clients.
So they're not even really competing with DeepSeek directly.
Not really. They're kind of working within their ecosystem.
So it's almost like DeepSeek's become like the Android of the AI world.
In a way, yeah, they're providing the platform and others are building on top of it.
That's fascinating. So Zhipu is kind of going in a different direction.
Yeah, they seem to want to do it all.
They want the consumer apps, they want the enterprise solutions, and they even want to go public.
Yeah, they've said they're aiming for an IPO on the STAR market in Shanghai.
That's a big move.
It is. It shows they have big ambitions.
So who is Zhipu AI? Like, who are the people behind all this?
Well, like we said before, they spun out of Tsinghua University.
One of the top universities in China.
Yeah, it's like the MIT of China.
Okay, so they've got some serious brain power behind them.
Yeah, they've got a lot of smart people working there.
And they've got a lot of government support too, right?
Oh yeah, they've been getting a lot of funding from the government.
Like, how much are we talking about?
Well, just recently, Chengdu gave them 300 million yuan.
That's like $40 million.
Yeah, something like that.
Ah.
And that was their third round of government funding in just 1 month.
Wow.
And they've also gotten investments from Huafa Group, a state-owned conglomerate.
So the government's really throwing their weight behind them.
They are.
Why do you think that is?
I think the Chinese government sees AI as strategically important.
Yeah, like a key industry for the future.
Exactly.
So they want to make sure that China is a leader in this field.
Right, they want to have their own national champions in AI.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so they're investing heavily in companies like Zhipu.
So it's not all sunshine and roses for them though, right?
Well, they've had some setbacks.
What kind of setbacks?
Well, the US government put them on an export control list.
What does that mean?
It means they can't buy certain US-made components, like the really advanced AI chips from NVIDIA.
Oh, those are the ones that everyone's using for these big AI models.
Right, so that's a big problem for them.
Because they need those chips to train their models and run them efficiently.
Exactly.
So the US is trying to kind of slow them down.
In a way, yeah, it's definitely a hurdle for them to overcome.
So let's talk about the bigger picture here. What does the release of AutoGLM mean for the global AI landscape?
Well, some people are calling it China's answer to OpenAI and Claude.
Right.
It's a free AI agent that's targeted at everyday users.
So they're trying to get it into the hands of as many people as possible.
Yeah, they want to be the go-to AI for everyone.
And that raises some interesting questions, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what about data privacy? You know, this is a model that's been trained primarily on Chinese data.
And it's subject to Chinese regulations, which are very different from what we have in the West.
So there are some concerns about how user data will be handled.
Right, especially if it's being used by people all over the world.
And then there's the issue of state oversight.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Zhipu has these close ties to the Chinese government.
So some people are worried about the potential for censorship or propaganda.
Yeah, like what if the government starts using AutoGLM to push their own agenda?
It's a legitimate concern.
It's definitely something to think about.
And then there's the impact on U.S. companies like OpenAI and Anthropic.
Right, the ones that are charging for their AI agents.
Yeah, if AutoGLM is actually good and it's free.
People might not want to pay for those other services.
Exactly.
So it could force them to lower their prices
Yeah.
or offer more free features.
Yeah, they might have to adapt to stay competitive.
That's interesting. One of the articles we read even talked about AutoGLM as a potential Trojan horse.
Yeah, that was an interesting take.
Like, what do they mean by that?
Well, the idea is that it could be a way for China to expand its influence in the tech world.
Like, if everyone's using a Chinese-made AI agent.
They could be collecting a lot of data, they could be promoting certain narratives.
So it's kind of a soft power play?
In a way, yeah. It's something to keep an eye on.
Definitely. Just to give you a sense of what else is going on in the AI world, Apple is working on something called Project Mulberry.
Yeah, it's supposed to be an AI-powered health tool.
Pretty interesting. And then, of course, there's Elon Musk.
He's always up to something.
He merged Twitter, or X as it's now called.
Yeah, with his AI company, XAI.
So he's really going all in on AI.
He wants to integrate AI into everything.
Yeah, he's got this vision of like AI being embedded in all aspects of our lives.
Which is kind of exciting, but also a little scary.
Yeah, it definitely raises some ethical questions.
For sure.
So, as we've been talking about all this,
Yeah.
we've actually had some disagreements about some of this stuff.
It's a complex topic.
It is.
A lot of different angles to consider.
Yeah. For example, Zhipu's strategy of giving AutoGLM away for free.
Right.
Do you think that's a smart move?
Well, it's a risky move for sure. I mean, they reported losses of like 2 billion yuan last year.
Yeah, and they have a lot more employees than DeepSeek, which is more streamlined.
Right.
So they're burning through a lot of cash.
They are. But they might be able to make it up in other areas, like you said, enterprise solutions or an IPO.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to see.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
A big gamble.
What about the government backing? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it gives them a lot of resources.
Right.
And it helps them compete with companies that are backed by Western governments. But it also makes them beholden to the government.
So they might have to do things they don't want to do.
Exactly.
Like censor certain information or share user data.
It's a possibility.
Yeah. And what if the government decides to switch horses? You know, what if they decide that DeepSeek is a better bet?
That could be a problem for Zhipu.
Yeah, they could lose a lot of funding and support.
They could. They're kind of putting all their eggs in one basket.
It's a high-risk, high-reward situation.
It is.
And then there's the whole issue of regulation.
Right.
AutoGLM might not be subject to the same kind of scrutiny as Western AI models.
Which could be a competitive advantage in the short term.
Yeah, they can move faster. They don't have to worry about all the red tape.
But in the long term, it could be a problem.
Like how so?
Well, if there are concerns about data privacy or censorship,
People might be hesitant to use it.
especially in Western markets.
Yeah, where people are more sensitive to those issues.
So it's a trade-off.
Yeah, they're giving up some trust and transparency for speed and agility.
It's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is.
It is. So we've been talking about this whole idea of China becoming an AI superpower.
Yeah, they're making some serious moves.
They are.
But is AutoGLM really a great leap forward?
It's definitely a step forward.
Yeah.
It shows that they're capable of developing sophisticated AI.
Right.
And that they're willing to invest heavily in it.
But there are still some challenges, right?
Yeah, like the export controls, the financial losses, the regulatory issues.
It's not a slam dunk.
No, it's not. It's a complex and evolving situation.
So what are the key takeaways here?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that the AI landscape is changing rapidly.
Yeah, things are moving so fast.
And China is a major player.
They're not just playing catch up anymore, they're innovating.
Right.
And they're willing to take risks,
Like offering a powerful AI agent for free.
which is pretty unprecedented.
It is.
So what are the big questions we should be asking ourselves?
I think the biggest question is, what does this mean for the future of AI?
Yeah, what happens if China really does become the leader in this field?
What happens to the balance of power?
Right.
What happens to our values?
Yeah, what happens to our privacy?
These are all important questions.
And there are no easy answers.
No, not at all.
But it's something we all need to be thinking about,
Absolutely.
because AI is going to have a huge impact on our lives.
It already is.
And it's only going to get bigger.
It's going to change everything.
So we need to be prepared.
We need to understand the implications.
And we need to make sure that AI is used for good.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that it benefits humanity.
And not the other way around.
Well said.
So I think that's something for everyone to ponder.
Yeah, Something to think about.
As we move into this new era of AI,
What do you think? Leave us a comment and let us know.
we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And join us next time for another deep dive into the world of AI.
Until then, stay curious.
What are your thoughts on today's topic? I'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay blessed.